The behavior of people-pleasing is not a virtue, as many mistakenly believe. It is not kindness, but rather a betrayal of oneself. You cannot truly serve others if you do not first serve yourself. This simple truth is often hidden beneath a perfect facade, where you continuously try to meet the needs of others while neglecting your own. Carl Jung, one of the masters of analytical psychology, pointed out that every time you say yes when you truly want to say no, you are not doing a good deed. You are merely trapping yourself in a role. You are living with an image that is not truly you. Behind the people-pleasing behavior is a deep fear, the fear of rejection, abandonment, and worse, being unacknowledged. Those who live with this pattern do not truly express themselves. They create a persona, a mask, to ensure they are not hurt and to survive in the eyes of others. They become a shadow of what others need, but lose themselves in the process. They make others happy, yet never feel truly close to anyone. They live in a world of pretense, where truth is buried beneath the layers of satisfaction and acceptance. Jung said that, in a world full of societal standards, each individual tends to create a persona, a protective shell, to guard their true self from rejection and conflict. However, this not only weakens personal identity, but also leads to an underlying loneliness that no one sees. These individuals are not loved for who they truly are, but for their ability to please others. Relationships, therefore, become hollow transactions, where you are valued not for who you are, but for what you do. What is even more important is recognizing the cost of this. The relationships you build from people-pleasing are not genuine relationships. They do not grow from a foundation of truth, but are merely performances of societal expectations. They cannot truly see you, because you have never allowed yourself to be you. Meanwhile, you seem to be constantly fatigued, stressed, unable to be yourself, yet feel powerless to change. You become a model, a perfect image with no flaws. But it is only in the moment you realize this truth, that you will see that it is not truth that weakens you, but the deceit that has worn you out. Every act of people-pleasing is not a noble sacrifice, but a manifestation of a false belief, that love is self-abandonment, but in reality, love is not unconditional surrender. Love begins with self-respect. When you do not accept yourself, you cannot truly love anyone else. This is what Jung wanted us to understand. To truly live, we must dare to face ourselves, dare to reject demands that exceed our ability, and dare to say no when necessary. We all wear a mask. The mask is not a choice, but a matter of survival. According to Carl Jung, persona is not something we want, but something we must have in order to exist in a world full of expectations and pressures. Persona is the shell we create to protect ourselves from the intrusion of the outside world, a mask that hides our true nature. This mask is not inherently wrong. It is a necessity. It is a product of the adaptation process, a psychological response to the threats posed by the social environment. But the problem arises when you become so familiar with this mask that you begin to lose yourself. Jung understood that, throughout the development process, every individual needs to construct a persona in order to integrate with society. Persona helps us create a social image to receive recognition and acceptance. But the problem arises when persona is no longer a tool for interaction but becomes the self that we completely identify with. Gradually, you can no longer distinguish between the mask and your true self. Persona no longer serves as a protective shield, but becomes a prison that confines you within its limits. You live in a world where every action, every decision is influenced by what others expect from you, rather than what you truly need or want. Persona is the product of fear, the fear of rejection, being undervalued, and above all, being forgotten. When you do not know how to express yourself authentically, you are forced to wear a mask to protect yourself. But in the process, you become a stranger in your own life. You no longer live the way you want to, but live to please others. This surrender gradually robs you of your freedom and identity, creating an inner void where you no longer recognize yourself. The relationships you build are no longer real relationships. These relationships are based on a persona, a role, not on your true essence. Jung pointed out that the development of persona begins when you are young, in the early years of life, where you learn to change yourself to fit the expectations of parents, teachers, friends, and society. You learn to smile when you want to cry, learn to say yes when you want to say no, and learn to hide your true emotions to avoid criticism or abandonment. Every time you do this, you are gradually creating an image you want the world to see. But it is not you. This is the beginning of the persona creation process, and it continues to form throughout your developmental stages. Persona helps you survive in society, but it also stifles the development of your true self. When you live in the shell of persona for too long, you forget your true identity. You begin to feel tired and exhausted because you have to maintain an image that is not your own. Each passing day, you grow further apart from yourself, living in a world where everything is dictated by others. Persona is not just a facade in relationships with others, but also a distancing from your own feelings and needs. You become a shadow, a reflection of what society desires, not an independent individual with your own emotions and needs. But as Jung pointed out, persona has its price. The cost is not only the loss of identity, but also the inability to connect authentically with others. Relationships become hollow transactions, where you are loved not for who you are, but for your ability to meet others' expectations and demands. They love the image you have created, but they do not know who you are behind the mask. It is in these relationships that you begin to feel lonely, even though you are surrounded by people. Loneliness does not come from the absence of others, but from the absence of yourself. When persona becomes your dominant identity, it not only hinders growth, but also creates a life that is deprived and exhausting. The cost of wearing a mask for too long is mental fatigue, inner turmoil, and ultimately losing your way in your own life. Unhealed wounds, unexpressed emotions, and unmet needs accumulate, forming a shadow in your mind. Jung warned that only when you dare to look into the darkness of yourself, when you dare to remove the mask and face who you truly are, can you achieve true freedom and wholeness. Have you ever wondered why, in decisive moments, you abandon yourself to please others? Why do you choose silence, submission, and hide your emotions, even though you know deep down that it's hurting you? Jung once said, "Every person has their own shadow, but only by confronting it can we truly grow." It is from these moments in childhood, where unhealed wounds were formed, that we begin to build habits and psychological mechanisms to survive in a world that is not always easy. But have you ever stopped and reflected on this? Is people pleasing an act of kindness, or simply a survival reaction you were unaware of? As a child, you learn to adapt. You are not born with the instinct to comply, but with each rejection, abandonment, or criticism, you realize that to be loved, to be accepted, you must change. You must meet the expectations of others. This is not a choice, but a psychological survival response. Jung pointed out that during the early years of life, when we do not yet have the capacity to face negative emotions, we begin to create a persona, a mask, to protect ourselves from the turbulent waves of rejection and loneliness. But that mask gradually becomes a part of our identity, a part that we can no longer distinguish from who we truly are and who others want us to be. The survival psychological program Jung mentions is not something temporary or easily undone. It is the invisible operating system that each individual builds to cope with the world around them. As a child, you are unaware that you are building these strategies to survive. You don't realize that each time you place others' needs above your own, you are gradually losing your true identity. But in those early years, when you seek love and acceptance from adults, you have no choice but to comply with their expectations, even if it means hiding your emotions, desires, and true needs. This program doesn't stop at creating a persona. It becomes part of a deep survival mechanism in the subconscious. Jung explained that in moments when you cannot face the truth about yourself, the subconscious automatically provides solutions to protect you from pain. You become the people pleaser, smiling when you want to cry, saying yes when you want to say no, and remaining silent while inside, you're screaming. But do you realize that this people-pleasing is not an act of true love? Do you see that in these moments you are losing yourself? We are not born with these programs. They are formed over time, through rejections, through feeling inadequate, through constantly living up to the expectations of others. Jung once said, "We cannot change anything until we accept it." Acceptance of ourselves, including the parts of us we do not wish to see, is the key to unlocking these programs. You cannot step into the light without confronting your shadow. So, the question I want to ask you is, are you ready to change? Ready to step out of the shadows of your own self and confront the masks you've worn for so long? Ready to let go of the people-pleasing actions that no longer serve you and become your true, authentic self? If the answer is yes, leave a sign for me to know you are here. Just a line saying, "I am ready for change," or even just the number 1 will let me know that you are here and you are embarking on this journey of change. Don't forget to share this video with those you truly care about. Perhaps they too are yearning for change and need a little light to step out of the shadows. This could be the most valuable gift you give them. And to me, the most precious thing is knowing that this message has reached you and those you love. I am truly grateful for that, and I believe that the change is not only yours, but also for everyone around you. Every time you smile when you want to cry, every time you say yes when you truly want to say no, you are not only living in the shadow of yourself, but also creating a fake world around you. The mask of persona, although initially a survival response, gradually becomes the mechanism that controls your relationships. The world no longer sees you for who you truly are, but as a model constructed from the expectations, demands, and convenience you provide. The relationships you build are not based on true understanding and love, but on the benefits you can offer others. In these relationships, you become a tool to meet the needs of others, rather than being loved for who you truly are. Jung once said, "People don't love you for who you are. They love you for what you can do for them." When you live under the shadow of persona, you are no longer yourself in the eyes of others. You become what they want you to be. They like you because you are agreeable, easy to accept, but they don't love you for your true essence. You are the person they can rely on, but not the person they truly understand. These relationships become shallow and deficient. You cannot share your true emotions, cannot express your desires, needs, and limits. You become someone who is always there, always ready, but invisible in those relationships. Utility-based relationships may last a long time, but they never truly nurture you. They only satisfy short-term needs, external societal demands, but they don't help you grow or allow you to develop authentically. You live in a world where every action, every decision, is evaluated through the lens of others. They love you because you can make them feel safe and comfortable, but they never ask how you feel or what desires and limits you have. It is this disconnection from yourself, this abandonment of your right to be yourself in those relationships, that creates profound loneliness. Every time you put on the persona mask, you not only hide yourself but also weaken your ability to truly connect with others. You live in one-sided relationships, where you are always the pleaser, always accepting, always responding, but never receiving genuine understanding and love. These relationships do not allow you to exist as an independent individual. They only allow you to exist as part of someone else's needs. It is a fake connection, an existence in a role, not in your true essence. You become a part of someone else's survival strategy, but ignore your own survival strategy. Jung pointed out that when you live in the shadow of persona, you not only lose your freedom but also lose the ability to build real relationships. These relationships become invisible transactions, where everyone exchanges benefits without sincerity. They love you because you meet their needs, because you give them a sense of safety and control. But when you cannot meet those demands, they no longer see you with the respect and love you expect. You become a tool, not a person. In reality, these relationships can exhaust you because you always have to maintain the image and role that your persona demands. You must always appear strong, always appear cheerful, always be ready to help, without ever having the chance to express your own vulnerability or needs. And when these relationships can no longer meet your expectations, you will realize that you have lost something important, your true self. You no longer live in a real relationship, where both sides can open up, share, and love each other sincerely. Instead, You live in a network of fake relationships where everyone plays their role, but no one truly knows anyone. When your persona becomes your only self, you lose the ability to experience real relationships, where you can love without sacrificing yourself, where you can share your truth without fearing judgment or evaluation. Only when you remove this mask, only when you dare to be yourself, can you build real relationships, where you are loved not for what you can do for others, but for who you are. Utility-based relationships will never help you grow. They only sustain your existence in a fake world, where love and connection are replaced by transactions and unmet needs. Only when you step out of the shadow of persona, only when you dare to live authentically, can real relationships emerge. We live in a world where acceptance from others becomes an essential part of shaping our identity. But the cost of this acceptance is not small. Every time you please others, you not only satisfy them, but also fulfill a part of your own psychology, the need to be recognized. Carl Jung pointed out that in those moments, you are not just seeking validation from the outside world. You are creating a vicious cycle, a cycle in which you become addicted to acceptance. What you call love, real connection, is actually just a dependency on the approval of others, a never-ending cycle that can never fully satisfy you. We all need acceptance, that's a given. But the problem arises when this need turns into an addiction. Every compliment, every admiring glance from others is like a temporary drug, making you feel satisfied, as if you've just been injected with a dose of dopamine. But soon, that feeling fades, leaving a void, and you go seeking more recognition from the outside. This becomes an endless cycle. You act to please others, they respond with approval. But that approval isn't lasting. It's not deep enough to make you feel complete. You continue searching for recognition elsewhere, from other people, in other situations. This is the cycle of needing validation that Jung described. It is not a temporary scarcity, but a part of a survival mechanism formed over years through feelings of rejection and abandonment from childhood. When you were young, the love and acceptance from your parents, teachers, or friends were a matter of survival. To be loved, you learned to please them. And from there, this behavior became a habit, an automatic response whenever you felt threatened by loneliness or rejection. That is when you began creating a persona, a mask not only to protect yourself from rejection, but also to maintain the acceptance of others. But when the mask becomes you, when the persona is no longer a tool but a part of you, you fall into the trap of addiction to acceptance. The alarming thing is, in this cycle, you gradually lose the ability to truly understand and accept yourself. You no longer derive your sense of worth from within, but from the judgment of others. Every time you do something, you no longer ask yourself if it aligns with who you are, but whether others will accept it. Confidence, inner security, no longer comes from within, but from external validation. And when the world around you no longer offers compliments or recognition, you feel empty, lost, and begin seeking it all over again. Every time this happens, the cycle repeats, and with each repetition, you drift further away from your true essence. Jung realized that this cycle not only paralyzes your self-awareness, but also creates a divide between your true self and your persona. You not only become addicted to external validation, but also lose the ability to love and accept yourself authentically. You lose yourself in this endless race, while the satisfaction you seek is never enough. Jung called this a form of psychological addiction. You cannot live a fulfilling, free life if you continue seeking acceptance from the outside world, because it's just a temporary fix that keeps you spiraling into emptiness. Ask yourself, are you living for yourself, or just living to please others? Do you truly accept yourself, or do you only feel worthy when others recognize you? And when that recognition isn't there, do you feel lost, or can you still stand strong, still love and respect yourself? This is the lesson Jung wants us to realize. Acceptance is not something you must seek from others. If you cannot accept yourself, you will never truly feel the love and connection from others. Love and connection cannot be built on dependency on external validation. Only when you learn to accept and love yourself can you break free from the addiction to acceptance, and only then will you find true freedom. When you reject yourself, You are not only running from your imperfections but also gradually stripping away your ability to truly connect with yourself. Carl Jung, in his deep analysis of human psychology, pointed out that rejecting yourself is not just self-deception, it is a dangerous act that creates a fracture within your very being. You become a superficial version, a persona that you cannot fully control, and this separation prevents you from experiencing the truth of who you really are. According to Jung, self-rejection weakens your sense of self and leads to psychological and physical manifestations that are not easily explained. We begin rejecting ourselves in the smallest moments of life. When you say yes, when you truly want to say no, when you put on a mask to please others, or when you turn a blind eye to your own emotions, desires, and needs. These seemingly harmless actions are filled with fragments of your identity. These fragments won't disappear. They are not simply faint memories, but accumulate in the darkness, where they become psychological ghosts that threaten your inner peace. Jung believed that this self-rejection not only leads to internal conflict, but also creates a war within the subconscious, where the suppressed parts of yourself will rebel, attempting to emerge, but remain unrecognized and unaccepted by you. The first manifestation of self-rejection is disconnection from yourself. You no longer recognize your true emotions, and you lose the ability to clearly understand what you truly want, need, and desire. Instead of living according to your true nature, you begin acting to meet others' expectations. This creates a void in your soul, where you always feel inadequate, exhausted, as if you're living in a world that is not real, not yours. This disconnection can lead to stress, anxiety, or even depression. You may not understand why you feel this way, but in reality, you are living a life that is not your own, and though it may not show outwardly, it corrodes you from the inside. One of the most apparent consequences of self-rejection is the increase in psychological tension. When you cannot accept yourself, you must constantly protect yourself from the hidden emotions and suppressed parts within your subconscious. Jung noted that emotions we refuse to face do not vanish. They are simply pushed into the subconscious, where they continue to affect our behavior and emotions unconsciously. Feelings of fatigue, exhaustion, or even unexplained discomfort are signs that you are carrying a psychological burden that you cannot release. When you cannot recognize the root cause of this stress, you won't know how to process or resolve it. Self-rejection not only causes psychological disorders, but also affects your physical health. Jung found that psychological issues like anxiety, depression, or prolonged stress can transform into physical symptoms, from digestive problems and headaches to autoimmune diseases. When the mind is not relieved, when you continue to live in the tug-of-war between your true self and your false persona, the body expresses its resistance through pain, fatigue, or even illness. This is how your body tells you it can no longer carry the psychological burdens you are unaware of. The more you reject yourself, the more you create invisible stress, and ultimately, your body will pay the price for the lack of harmony between your mind and body. Jung advised that to heal, we must face ourselves completely. Only by confronting the dark parts of ourselves, the emotions we've rejected and concealed, can we heal those psychological wounds. Accepting yourself is not an easy task. It touches on the deepest parts, the areas you don't want to confront, but only when you dare to look at them can you free yourself from the imprisonment of your own creation. Jung said, "We cannot change anything until we accept it." Accepting yourself is not just a step in the journey of self-awareness, but also an act of liberating yourself from the constraints of persona and the falsehoods you've created. Only when you dare to accept your imperfections can you begin the journey back to your true self, harmonizing with your real essence, and live a full, complete life. Individuation, the process of rebirth described by Carl Jung, is not an easy path. It is not a superficial change or a step into the world of material success, but a profound and challenging journey inward, a journey of rediscovering oneself. This is the process by which each individual gradually becomes aware of and integrates all parts of themselves, from the creative and positive aspects to the darker parts they have rejected or suppressed. It is a psychological rebirth, a transformation that can only occur when you dare to confront the misunderstood parts of yourself, parts that society has forced you to hide, parts you have deliberately ignored. When you begin the individuation journey, you are no longer just a person living in alignment with the outside world. You begin to realize that you must live true to the deep essence inside you. This marks a profound shift in how you view yourself and the world. You no longer live for the acceptance of others, no longer follow societal standards that have been imposed upon you, but you begin to define your own worth. This process is not merely about changing behaviors or habits. It is about changing from within, about accepting all the parts of yourself you once avoided. Self-acceptance, in Jung's context, does not mean agreeing with every aspect of yourself easily. Truly facing yourself requires you to confront the difficult, hidden parts, fears, anger, and desires you have suppressed for years. This is not to make you perfect, but to help you realize that perfection does not exist. Instead, psychological maturity comes from daring to face and accept the imperfect parts of yourself and learning to integrate them. Jung believed that in the process of individuation, you not only psychologically rebirth, but also integrate the darker parts of your soul, parts you do not want to see. These parts are not evil or sinful. They are simply aspects that you or society have rejected. When these parts are recognized and accepted, they can become a powerful source of strength. You cannot live a full life without confronting your darkness. That darkness is the part of you that has been overlooked by society, hidden in the corners of your soul. But it is in that darkness that you will find your true light. The individuation process is not only about personal rebirth, but also about the transformation of the parts of yourself buried under societal acceptance. You will no longer live under the pressure of becoming someone others expect you to be. You will live for yourself, based on values you choose, based on the true desires and needs deep within your soul. This does not mean becoming selfish or indifferent to others, but rather knowing how to love and care for yourself first. Only when you can love yourself completely can you love and connect with others authentically. Jung said, "We cannot change anything until we accept it." This is an important reminder of how we must face ourselves. We cannot change what we do not accept. If you continue to reject the imperfect parts of yourself, you will never truly grow. The process of individuation requires continuous learning and growth, and this can only happen when you dare to accept all that you are, without distinguishing between good and bad. Psychological rebirth is a long and sometimes painful journey, but it is a necessary one for you to become the person you truly are. Jung understood that only when you live authentically, when you no longer hide parts of yourself, can you achieve inner peace. The individuation process is not an end, but a new beginning, where you not only become the person you want to be, but also the person you truly are. You no longer live in falsity, but in truth, freedom, and completeness. The final point that Jung wants us to understand is that individuation is not a journey you take alone. It does not just change you, it changes the world around you. When you achieve self-awareness and harmony with yourself, you not only create a better life for yourself, but also open opportunities for others to do the same. Therefore, this journey is not just yours, but part of a larger process, where each individual contributes to the transformation of humanity as a whole. When you embark on the individuation journey, you not only rebirth yourself, but also have the potential to rebirth the relationships in your life. Jung understood that humans are social beings, and no real psychological development can occur in isolation. However, true relationships are not superficial transactions where each party only cares about what they can gain from the other. True relationships are deep connections between people who have fully accepted themselves and each other. When you have learned to face yourself, your light and your darkness, you no longer view others through the lens of need and lack. You no longer seek completion or comfort from them, but seek real connection, where both can exist in truth and freedom. Jung pointed out that when a person enters the process of individuation, they not only change themselves, but also change how they interact with those around them. This process creates a transformation not only within the individual, but also in social relationships. When you can accept and love yourself fully, you not only find freedom, but you also create space for genuine relationships, where there is no pretense, no exploitation, but only respect and sincere connection. These relationships are not ones you have to fight to maintain, but natural ones that grow from mutual respect. You no longer have to please or satisfy others to keep them around. When you live authentically, you attract those who live authentically, and the relationship between you becomes deeper because it is not based on external factors like benefits or dependence. These relationships allow you to be yourself, and at the same time, they allow others to be themselves. This is the connection between people who have undergone the journey of self-awareness, people who no longer view each other through the eyes of expectation, but through understanding and deep sharing. Recreating true relationships is not just about changing how you treat others, but changing how you view them. You no longer see others as tools to fulfill your needs, but as independent individuals, each with their own stories, desires, and souls. In these relationships, you are no longer bound by the outward forms of persona, but you truly meet and connect with others on a deeper level, where both you and they can be yourselves without having to change for each other. This is a fundamental change because it does not just change you, it changes how you interact with the world around you. Jung also believed that the process of individuation not only helps individuals rebirth, but also creates a transformation in the community. When each individual in a community begins the journey of self-awareness, the community no longer remains a collection of isolated individuals, but becomes a unified whole, where connection and understanding are the foundation of all relationships. A community is no longer just a group of people living near each other, but a space where each person is respected, loved, and allowed to express themselves fully. Such communities do not exist in pretense, but in authenticity and freedom, where each person can live true to themselves, without fear of judgment or rejection. The process of community transformation is not an easy one. It faces barriers of fear, conservatism, and old values deeply embedded in society. But it is in these difficult moments that those individuals who dare to change and live authentically will become the seeds for transformation. They not only change their own lives, but also create a profound impact on those around them, opening the way for a greater transformation. Each person who lives truthfully and accepts themselves contributes to building a community where authenticity, freedom, and respect become core values. Jung understood that community transformation begins with each individual. When you change your perception and your way of living, you not only change yourself, but also change the world around you. You become an inspiration for others, and through this, you create a wave of change in the community. It is these individuals who dare to live authentically, who dare to face the darkness within themselves, that will help build a better world, where everyone can live freely, unbound by expectations or pretense. Finally, the process of recreating true relationships and transforming the community is not an endpoint, but an ongoing journey. Each step in this journey is an opportunity for you to perfect yourself and for the world around you to become brighter. This journey never ends, and everyone who participates in it contributes to the collective development of society, where sincerity and freedom are the lasting values.